Hello, I'm Robert Bryan. This is my presentation of my interview with the librarian at the Mint Museum of Charlotte. This is the overview for the presentation. The Mint Museum is currently housed in what was once the original branch of the United States Mint, and hence the name Mint Museum. And it opened in 1936 in an historic area of Charlotte, a neighborhood called Eastover. The Mint Museum Library holds more than 18,000 volumes, and it does show that there's not a space that's left open in their library. The volumes that they hold are distributed between the main library, which is the J.A. Jones Reference Library, and the Dale Holm Campbell Reference Library. And both of these libraries are located inside the Mint Museum there on Randolph Road. The librarian at the Mint Museum is in her 6th year there as the administrator, and she was formerly with the Art Institute of Charlotte. She reports directly to the Director of Education for the museum, and that reports to the Museum Educational Department. The library is currently working on their contribution for the Mint Museum's 2011 strategic plan. And a highlight of this plan is they want to emphasize a more public aspect for the museum and the library specifically. Right now, most of the visitors they have are curators or scholars, art scholars, and they would like to make it more accessible to the general public. The research model I used was an interview of the library administrator and a brief tour. The budget is a critical consideration because it is a small one. It totals approximately $20,000. I have a table that will come in that will show the allocation of funds and where they come from. And this administrator does not manage a professional library staff. She supervises 7 volunteers and 3 interns. One of these interns is an undergrad, but she plans on attending an MLIS program once she graduates. And I do have also a table for the breakdown of the percentage of time she takes during her day, how her day is split up percentage-wise. There is the table for the budget. As you can see, it is small. Subscriptions from their members, by far the largest, which is $10,000. And the bottom table shows the percentages of how a typical day turns out for this administrator. Administration obviously takes up the most of their time, as one might expect in this. And during this interview, we were discussing some of the readings that I have had in this class. In describing to her one from First Break All the Rules, she realized that the approach to management was reflective of key number 2 that we have from First Break All the Rules, which is when setting expectations, they define the right outcomes, not the right steps. And she described her role as manager, that she is not to look over their shoulders or provide them with a plan for their day. How they accomplish their task are up to them. She looks for the right outcomes at the end of the day. Also, we discussed about the idea of employees who can be successful without having to climb a ladder. She agreed with that, and that when someone is in a right fit and excels in it, and most importantly enjoys it, that success can be achieved. The 2 questions I asked her, well, number 1 was, what quality do I need if I were going to run that library? And number 2, what is the most significant problem you deal with on a daily basis? The answer to number 1 was to be adaptive to ever-changing circumstances. And that is that demands from different curators and scholars need to be addressed quickly, which means that if she is working on a grant, which she tries to do quite a bit of, will have to be tabled while she answers the user's need. The other question, number 2, was about space. That was the most significant problem they have at this museum. The racks are full, carts are full, boxes and materials are placed wherever an open spot can be found. And many times, in order to do one task, you have to unload a cart, use it for a task, return it, and reload it, and find somewhere to place things. And so space is at an extreme premium for this library. An opportunity for improvement is the same for the Mintz Library as it is for any other nonprofit organization. A healthier budget and adequate space for their materials, and to have a research area for their scholars. Right now they are in primarily one room, and they would like to increase that. And they would like to have, again, a large budget, but she did concede that if one is committed to the work and enjoys it, that moves the calculus toward professional and personal satisfaction, and that sometimes it's not always about the money. I have an example of the Mint Museum Library using secret number 1 from Moravian fans. It concerned conservation. The librarian found that what they needed was a conservation program for many of their materials. And she didn't want any sort of amateurish attempt at this. So there was no money readily available. So she had a book sale, which established some seed money, I think probably a couple $1,000, if I remember correctly, to set up a conservation program for the library. And for the librarian, in both they're in twos here, tandem with lobbying and the executive office, to provide a plan of action that the administrator can do on her own to seek out and secure additional funding. Right now, that's not possible for her, but it would be a positive thing if she could reach out on her own. And I think that she's attempting to do that with the conservation program, which is to come up with a solution for a problem and make that happen. And resident leadership, as I understand it from my reading, was alive and well at the Mint. Everyone that I met was enthusiastic and cheerful and willing to give their time and answer questions. And apparently this is a daily way of life there at the Museum Library. I want to thank you. The conclusion of the presentation with the librarian, I thought about this axiom that I thought was appropriate. The quote is that perfection is impossible, but if you chase perfection, you will catch excellence. And that comes from Green Bay Packers former coach Vince Lombardi. And I think that this administrator in this small library is just about that, catching excellence.